Well, welcome everybody to this first meeting of fall. Jeff McNaughton is unable to be here. He is at a family reunion of sorts this weekend in Florida, so you're stuck with me. Sorry. I was not looking for an applause line there. But if you would take the first 5 minutes and stand up and greet somebody you haven't seen in a while, or somebody you've been missing, or somebody you don't know at all, and we'll be back here in 5 minutes. Yes, sir. Okay, let's go back to our spots, but don't sit down just yet. Is this working? All right, let's move on forward. I'm going to get Cindy Cummings to come up and do our invocation, pledge, and national anthem.
You may. Are there any concerns that we need to know about as a group?
Yeah,
Go ahead, Will.
my dad is in the hospital. He's kind of had some heart stuff.
Can't hear you.
Sorry, my dad's in the hospital. So he's got some heart things.
Heart problems,
Come
and
and go.
so yes, we'll keep him in our prayers. Yes, Pat?
My brother is having some neurological issues. They haven't quite nailed down what it is, but he could use some prayers.
Anyone else? Oh, okay.
I don't know if all of y'all know, but Howard Parker passed away.
Yeah.
We talked about him a couple weeks ago being ill. He did pass away. I don't think there's any announcement yet on service. I think the service was private for the family, but they're going to have something later.
There was an obituary.
Yeah, it was in the paper. You can look it up, and we were mentioned, but you can look it up in the.
I did see that.
Yeah, and my wife's uncle that was in the hospital last week, he was actually diagnosed with lymphoma. So he's back at in their facility that he lives in with his wife, but it doesn't look too good.
Yeah. Well, prayers for him too. Okay. Okay, thank you. May we pray? Gracious and loving God, thank you for the many blessings that you have given us, for our wonderful Rotary Club, for the friendships that we all enjoy, opportunities to serve the less fortunate. We pray for those having difficulties of all kinds, both physical, mental. Just there's so many things right now. We ask that you give all of these people strength to carry on. We pray for the people of Puerto Rico and all of the affected, all those affected by the hurricanes as it goes on and on. We pray also for Ukraine and the untold suffering of their people. We also want to pray so much for our own country and for its leaders. We thank you for guidance, for comfort, and for strength. Amen. Not done yet. It's a twofold job. Okay. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Still haven't gotten used to that tempo change, have we? We'll get there. So who's going to contribute to our Happy Bucks this week? Who's happy about something that wants to contribute? Do you need a microphone?
I forgot something.
Happy's got Happy Bucks.
I'm extra happy that I'm going to the Chiefs versus the Buccaneers game with, there's 6 of us going next week. We're really excited.
Woohoo! All right.
Jeff, this is a brag. I'm bragging on my wife, Sarah. Many of y'all know she's a managing consultant. She's been with KPMG and Deloitte and the likes, but she has a book out that she was approached with 18 other women who are leaders in thought and business and such. And so she's an author of it, and it's actually a #1 bestseller on Amazon in the leadership category, as she told me today. So I said, I'm going to brag on you. So,
Congratulations. What's the name of the book?
it's called Worth the Risk. Worth the Risk.
Worth the Risk. Anybody else?
Linda over there. No? Oh. You know, if this was an auction, you'd have just bid.
That's right. She just bid.
All right. Well, while Scott's got the microphone, if you're here with a guest, would you please stand up and introduce your guest, please? Any guests?
Oh.
That's what you were raising your hand about.
Mary. This is my lifelong friend, Mary Hodge. She's a Dallas native. She's an artist and a sculptor, and I really wasn't going to tell you all this, but she's Tom Rhodes' cousin.
Right behind you there, Scott.
I'm really excited to introduce Charito Moore and Sergio Pope with Regions Bank. They are retail bankers. Sergio is the branch manager. They're both joining, and they're both going to be introduced soon. I'm really excited that they're both joining, and I'm really excited they're here. Thank you. Welcome.
Welcome. All right. Well, thank you for joining us, guests. Now Eric Harrison is going to come up and talk about our Marketplace Advertiser of the Week.
Good afternoon. Our Marketplace Advertiser this week is my magnetic personality, I'm sure. Our Marketplace Advertiser is Dr. Nolan Duck with DBG Advisors. DBG Advisors is a merger and acquisition advisory and business brokerage firm. They are focused on helping founders, owners, and executives determine, build, and get full value of their business. They offer owners of privately held, lower middle market companies a wide range of services specializing in the sale of companies with revenue between $2 and $65 million. At DBG Advisors, we use the Value Builder system to help owners maximize business valuation as they prepare for the sale of their largest asset. Based in North Dallas, they work with companies throughout DFW, West Texas, Austin, and Houston. Let's all thank DBG Advisors for their support, and if you're looking to sell a business, get in touch with Nolan.
Thank you, Eric. Next, we've got Valerie PELAN is going to introduce a new member. Jim, you want to join her?
This is Jim Dahl. He's one of our newer members. And Jim comes with lots of Rotary experience. He was a Rotary member in Jordan where he did lots of projects. He now works for ESME fiber optic company. And he's been actively coming and as a visitor and now as a member. So I want you to welcome Jim. He'll be giving his new member speech. You'll learn all about him and the projects he did in Rotary in Jordan. Welcome, Jim.
Hey, Valerie, stay still for just a moment, would you? Thank you.
You remember.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Jim, normally we would have given you your red badge today. Our club administrator's on vacation, so you'll get it as soon as she gets back. All right. Yeah. Susan Glenn is going to talk about our North Texas Food Packing Day, followed by Kathleen Claviter with a little something.
Thank you, Paul. Great job, by the way. I'm really honored to be the project lead for the North Texas Food Bank for our club this year. About 3 weeks after Happy introduced me to this club, my very first event was the North Texas Food Bank, April 1st. And I have to say I've got some big shoes to fill. I'm so grateful that I had that serving opportunity, and Stanley Wright led that. All of you know he's loved and missed, and it was about a month later that he passed. So what a privilege to work alongside of him. How many people here were there April 1st? Quite a few. Well, we've got 11 people signed up so far, and we have 40 spots. What I want you to know is that we have an early deadline this time, and you have to sign up by October 5th. Diana Cow was our point of contact there for many, many years, and she is no longer there. So we have Elizabeth Campos, who's our new contact, and we've had a few little glitches, so thank you for your grace. I'm a newbie, and she is too. But if you could sign up through my email, and if you have any questions, just let me know. You can bring your family, any 12-year-olds and older. So we have a lot of fun, so I ask you to join us on October 15th. It's a morning shift, 8:30 to 11:30. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Susan. Now Kathleen Claviter is going to come up, and she's going to auction off some goodies. She'll tell you about it.
So yeah, we're interchangeable. Valerie and I work together. So, okay. So what is she doing up here? And I've got Richard on one side and Lee on the other, and we're going to raffle. Background: I'm the team leader for Ronald McDonald House, which was, let's say, I don't know, 30 years. One of our community service projects. Always third Monday of the month, and all the team brings, the fixins, and a restaurant always supplies the entree. Well, we had a pass with, COVID, and they started up again in May, and we asked restaurants to donate the entree for us. Well, restaurants are having a hard time coming back, and we're having a hard time getting them to donate the entree. So we're using club cash flow to cover that. And so another way to do this is to, here we go. The first one is Blue Mesa. Remember Blue Mesa across the street? We used to have our new member happy hours there. They're terrific. They've closed some restaurants during the pandemic, and they have a great location in Addison. And they have, if anybody's ever been there, a terrific weekend buffet with these great blue agave margaritas. But just my thought on it. Anyway, so they can't do it, but they gave us a gift card for 2 brunches, which are $26 a piece, to raffle off and to put the money. So, I'm gathering money to buy the entree the months that we don't have a restaurant donating. So I'm going to raffle off these 2 cards to begin with. And I'm a team lead, so I'm very inclusive in everything we do. So I'm going to start you all off with participating. So if everybody will put one of their hands, I don't care which one, in the air, everybody is participating, because I know everybody would give at least $5 for this gift card worth $52. So you keep your hand in the air as long as we're up to your threshold. So if you keep your hand in the air, if you would give $10 for this gift card, if you would give $15 for this gift card, okay, anybody would give $25 for this $52 gift card, we still have our hand in the air. Anybody $30 for this gift card. And if you're getting tired, use your other hand with the elbow to keep it up. All right? All right, now, $40 for this gift card. And It comes with 3 mimosas. Not free. Alicia at the restaurant said, "Don't tell them free, spell 3." I said, "Nobody's going to care after 3 mimosas. Don't worry about it. 3 is good." We're very happy with that. Okay, so how many do we have now? We got 40. Okay, there's 2 hands still in the air. Do you 2 want to go together? Okay, so all right. $45 for this gift card. Now 2. Do you 2 want to go together? All right, $50 for this gift card. Your hand's still up at 50? Happy stand is still up. $55 for this gift card. Oh man, you 2 want to go together. $60 for this gift card. All right, $60. Mark, thank you very much. All right. We take cash. We take check. And we'll take a credit card when Lori comes back. We know where you live. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen. One last thing before we, two announcements, I'm sorry. You all should have gotten an email to sign up for your teams this year. Please do so if you hadn't yet. Team leaders need to make sure they know who are on their team so they can get everything going for next year. If not, you can go on the website and do it if you can't find the email. Last thing, we've got a Cowboys dinner at the Cowboys Stadium this Sunday night, 5 to 8 p.m. It's $84 per person, including 2 drinks and dinner. It's a VIP tour. You get to see all the back parts of the Cowboys operation that you don't normally get to see. We committed to 50 spots, and I know that we're well short. So if you're available Sunday night, please. Do what? So it's closed now. Is it closed or is it's still open? Okay. So I'm not begging like I was before. Okay. I needed to know how to couch all that. Right. But anyway, it's still open. It's still going to be a lot of fun. So please sign up if you can. Raffle drawing. Sarah, you're going to get to be you get to pick the number. So the way this works, for those of you that haven't been here, whoever has a winning number is going to be able to select a card from this deck. If they select the ace of spades, they get half the pot. If they don't select the ace of spades, they get to keep that card as a souvenir, and the drawing goes on. The last 4 numbers are 4032. 40. All right, Eric. I have no idea. It's not a trick deck. There's only one ace of spades.
Has anybody ever seen that ace?
Oh, 3 diamonds. Close. Thank you, Eric.
Ever request to show that the ace exists in the deck?
Really in that deck?
Let's just say that we followed the 4-way test around here.
That's what I wanted to hear.
Trust but verify, right? Okay. Valerie, we're ready to introduce the speaker. Oh, it's. I'm sorry. I'm getting this all mixed up. You can tell I'm rusty.
And a lot of people here know Sarah Blascovich, because I was telling Sarah, I get the emails with all her stuff, and for those of us who take the Dallas Morning News, we see all that stuff. She's born in Plano. She was local here. Graduated from one of the great journalism courses in America, the University of Missouri, and had various jobs around here. Ended up with the Dallas Morning News, 10 years or so with the Dallas Morning News, as the restaurant person, the industry, the leaders, the trends, and the food. And of course, most of us are zeroed in on the food. But anyway, it's a big job, because we're going from the fourth largest metropolitan area to the 3rd within the next decade or so. A lot of restaurants, so little time. But basically, she's got 2 children. Haley is 6, right? And then Brooke's 2. And the funny part about her bio is that her husband Chase is the one that cooks the meals that everybody likes at home. But I kind of understand that because so many restaurants, so little time. So welcome, Sarah Blascovich.
Well, hey, everybody. Thank you so much for that nice introduction. Is that okay? Everybody hear me? Okay. I brought my phone up not to take phone calls, but so that I really like talking to people. And so I'm gonna leave time for questions at the end. And so that's what I'm looking at my phone for. That's all. Hang on, let me make this a little taller.
Uh-oh. You can use a handheld if you want.
Can I? Is that okay? That way I can do like a comedy show up here. One of these?
Yeah.
They're on? Whoa. Ooh, okay. I like that. Okay, so here's what I thought I'd do. I'll tell you just a teeny bit about me and how I got this wacky job. And then I have 5 things I'm excited about in the world of food in Dallas-Fort Worth. I have 3 things I'm a little bit worried about that I'll tell you about too. And then if there's time, I'd love to tell you about my favorite project I've ever done, which is researching and cataloging Dallas-Fort Worth's oldest restaurants. It's a project I took on earlier this year, and I published a list in May of this year. And it was just a really cool experience for me, and so I'd love to talk about that if we have time. And if not, we'll take your questions, and anybody who's a subscriber, there was a whole separate magazine with all of my work on the oldest restaurants. So if you saw that, maybe you know what that is already. Please be thinking about questions. I would love to answer your questions. The one question I don't love to answer is, what is your favorite restaurant? And that is because I don't have one. Because I like so many different restaurants for so many different reasons. It's a little like asking the principal of an elementary school who the smartest kid is, right? Like, well, who's artistic and who's, gonna ace their math test and who's really a creative writer. So I would love to answer your questions with a little bit more information. What's my favorite restaurant in this specific neighborhood? What's my favorite date night spot? Where should you take your grandkids? Those kinds of questions are way easier to answer than what's your favorite restaurant, because there's so many wonderful restaurants in this town. Okay, so save those till the end, or if you want to ask me something in the middle of it, just raise your hand. I want this to be pretty casual. Okay, so I eat for a living, and I talk to chefs. That's my job, which is wacky because I did not grow up a food person. I grew up in Plano. My mom who now lives in Frisco, is a very healthy person, and she was a stay-at-home mom, so it was her job to feed my brother and I and my dad, but she didn't really like cooking. So I did not grow up in a house of, huge Sunday gravy dinners. My mom cooked baked chicken and canned green beans and sometimes rice-a-roni throughout the 80s and 90s for me and my brother. And that was food. So we did go to restaurants on birthdays, but that was kind of it, because restaurants were and are expensive, and so we saved them for special occasions. But like this idea that, I grew up with like an Italian mom who made the best food ever, not really the case. So I came to restaurants later. I went to journalism school also not to be a food writer. I wanted to cover city hall and school boards. And I wanted to make a difference in my community, teach people what's happening in their community. And so then I got really interested in specifically religion reporting. I was raised Catholic, and in college I studied major world religions, so I learned a lot about other people's religions, and I just think, and still think, that religion is an incredibly motivating factor in every piece of news. It has a lot to do with politics, it has a lot to do with poverty, it has a lot to do with food, it has a lot to do with everything. And so being born and raised in Dallas-Fort Worth, we had the best religion section in the country. So I was going to work for that section when I graduated from the best journalism school in the world, which is like all things that a 21-year-old bright-eyed kid says. And then I did my senior capstone thesis on the demise of the religion beat, because the best religion section in the world here at the Dallas Morning News was slimmed to, I think, a single page my senior year in college. So that idea was out. Now, while I was in college, I worked for the Associated Press in London, which was an incredible experience, not only because that's an incredible place and a really interesting publication, but also because I lived there in 2005. If you could think back to London, the summer of 2005, a major international event happened while I was the lowest on the totem pole in a 12-person newsroom. What happened is 4 suicide bombers detonated bombs in their backpacks on 3 tube cars and 1 bus. And I was in a place where I didn't know anybody. My mom happened to be visiting London that week, which is incredible. So she was in London with me when this happened. I was on a bus, headed to work at the Associated Press, when the bus stopped and kicked everyone out in a neighborhood where we didn't know where we were and said, every bus and every tube is shut down and we don't know why. So I got out of the bus that morning, and the detonation had already happened, but it was, it was 2005, so like people had cell phones, but it wasn't like I wasn't getting text messages about this. It was just, so I ran in heels to work because I thought something's happening and I think I need to help explain. It was very strange to be in a foreign city like that with all the buses pulled over to the side of the road. They all said out of service at the top, like right on the forehead of the bus. So I ran into work, and as the least important person in the room, my job was to call hospitals all day, once an hour, and I think there were 8 major hospitals, and get a death count for the people that they thought had come from this, tragedy. It was a horrible day, and I'll never forget it. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it, because that was such an unimportant job that then told people like you here in Dallas, Texas, what had happened in that city. So that terrible job was important. We learned that 52 people died that day. And I spent all day doing that job, while the older and more veteran journalists did bigger and more important work, like learning who these people were, telling their stories, trying to learn who the suicide bombers were, and trying to understand why they would do something like that. So that night, everybody was exhausted, and around 10 p.m., they sent everyone home but me and said, we need somebody to stay here overnight and answer the phone calls. The Associated Press hub is in New York City. So they said, we need you to answer the phone calls of the mean people in New York who will tell you what to do next. And everyone went home to sleep. And I was like 20, and I was like, oh no. So my mom, who's the best, slept on the floor of the Associated Press newsroom that night because she was in London with me. And she was like, there's no way in the world that I'm going home if you have to stay here by yourself, which is something that a good mom would do. And so she slept on the floor, and like, I don't know if you've ever been in a newsroom, but like not great floors. And so, like coffee stains and stuff. So my mom slept like under a desk, for real. And I stayed up, and I answered the phone calls from the people in New York. And my first job was to go to the tube, which opened at 5 a.m., can't remember what time that was in New York, and to talk to the people going back into the subway station. And you're supposed to write a story about who in the world is getting back on the subway the day after something like this happened. And the people who were getting back on the subway were people without cars, people who have to get to work, and people who are horrified and terrified that there could be a copycat crime. But it's their job to get back and start the day again. And so I ended up writing a story about that, little old 20-year-old me, and I was informed by my great uncle, who happens to live in Seattle, that that was on the front page of his newspaper, the Seattle Times. And I got to learning a little bit more about it. I worked at the Associated Press, remember. It was on the front page of 80 newspapers in the United States. So I just learned in a single 24-hour period, how personally important journalism is when it comes to crisis reporting. And then I learned that little old me could be a part of that, could teach people like you here in Texas what happened halfway around the world, and do it hopefully with grace, because we're talking about a serious international tragedy here. While I was there, related to the religion thing, I also spent some time in some mosques, because I was interested in talking to Muslim people about the stigma. I think a lot of people around the world thought that everybody who believed in that religion maybe wanted to kill people. And that's not true. We all know that's not true. And so I was sort of fascinated with the idea that we could tell stories to help explain all these other horrified Muslim people who were like, these 4 people aren't like me. And so I thought those were important stories to tell. So why am I a food writer now? So the religion thing didn't work out, right? And the crisis reporting, while so important, is really hard to do for an entire lifetime, right? Some people are international correspondents and war reporters, and that was important for a summer, and I didn't know if I wanted to do that forever. So the jobs I got, during a recession out of college were for arts and entertainment websites and sort of doing like this lighter fare. But inside of me was a city hall reporter, and a school board reporter, and a religion reporter, and an international crisis reporter. And so I started writing the occasional restaurant story, but looking at it from the lens of a serious journalist. And my suggestion is not that food reporters are not serious journalists, but I wanted to be a reporter first and a food person second, because that's who I am. And so you'll see when you read my stories, most of them are written through the lens of how do I report this story accurately, interestingly, and as fast as possible, without being sort of this like highfalutin food person. And for the past 10 years, I have covered food for the Dallas Morning News and have gotten to eat at the best restaurants in the city and beyond. And I've talked to every chef in town, and that is a really cool thing. But I'm also the watchdog for the industry. So if a restaurant closes, if a restaurant fails, if a chef behaves badly, that's also my job to report that stuff. And so I look at my whole job through the lens, of how do we understand the culture and the people through the lens of food. And I love it so much that me, the former not food person, is a huge food person now, even though my husband is a better cook. I'm also a good cook, kind of, if I can say he's just better at it. But we do a lot of eating around town for fun, too, and I believe strongly that restaurants are the fabric of our community. And then really learned how deeply true that was during the pandemic, when we saw many of our favorite restaurants close or fail or struggle. And so, on that note, I want to get to the 5 things I am excited about, and it starts with sort of a pandemic story. The number one thing I'm excited about when it comes to Dallas food in the next year is seeing neighborhood restaurants thrive. And what happened during the pandemic is that you helped save restaurants by spending your money at the places you thought were most important. And so I want you to think about that when you go to a restaurant next, today, tomorrow, in the next couple of weeks. Every single time you spend your money, you're spending it here and not there. And all of it matters to these restaurants. I learned from a famous chef in Fort Worth. His name is Tim Love. He owns Lonesome Dove, if anybody's been there, a really cool restaurant. And he owns like 20 other restaurants. But Tim Love told me at the beginning of the pandemic that a restaurant can survive 3 days without cash. So you're closed for 3 days when you're supposed to be open. A restaurant can survive 3 days. Why is that? Like, other industries don't work that way. We didn't see other industries fail after a couple of weeks. And restaurants are built different. Margins are thin. Most successful restaurant owners that make any bit of money squirrel it away and open another one, right? They don't just put it in their pocket. And so the industry was possibly going to be in crisis in the next 5 to 10 years anyway because of food prices and such. But then you throw in a pandemic, and many, many restaurants didn't make it. 33% of restaurants were expected to fail in Dallas-Fort Worth. 18% closed. So that's a lot. It's a lot. But it's less than we thought were going to happen. Like, it's not nothing at all. It matters to every single one. So I told a lot of stories of neighborhood restaurants, and I really believe in the neighborhood restaurant because it's the people who live near them that are propping them up. I will also say we have great neighborhoods in Dallas-Fort Worth. And if you live here in this neighborhood, for instance, you probably have favorite neighborhood restaurants. I live in East Dallas in Lakewood. I have favorite restaurants. You can go to the Bishop Arts District, even if you don't live there. What an interesting and different neighborhood than Park Cities, for instance. Deep Ellum, also an interesting neighborhood. I know a lot of folks don't want to go there after dark anymore. There's a bunch of great restaurants in Deep Ellum, and if you can find a place to park at lunchtime when the sun is still up, it's a really cool food region. So Dallas has always had a bunch of cool neighborhoods, and they've always had each their own identity, and I've never been more excited about the neighborhood restaurant because we just have so many strong neighborhood restaurants that you personally can support. The second thing that excites me is that it is easier to be a person to eat around town regardless of how you need or want to eat. It's never been a better time to be vegan, vegetarian, gluten-free. And so I grew up, when I was 14, my brother, who's 2 years older than me, decided he was going to be vegan for animal rights reasons. And my mom and dad were like, this is a phase, but fine. And so, and it did not turn out to be a phase. My brother was vegan for 15 years and now is vegetarian. And will be vegetarian forever because his body physically cannot eat meat. He's actually tried. You don't eat meat that long, it doesn't go so well after that. But in the 90s, when my brother was vegan, this was a bad time to be vegan. And he ate a lot of vegetables and he ate a lot of French fries. Now, We have whole restaurants that are vegan. And you and I, the carnivores, can also eat there and eat like cool, interesting food. We're making cakes. You know, instead of having cream and butter and eggs in them, we're making cakes with crushed up almonds and cashews as crusts. And there are so many different, like if you're into cooking or you're into food, there are so many cool things happening with veganism right now. And even if you just want to have a little fun and try one dish, it's fun for an evening. If anybody's been to Albernays, they have a whole vegan menu now. And it's, you know, they also have their regular menu, but Albernays is a steakhouse. And if a vegan person comes in there, if it was my brother in the 90s, they'd say, you can have some steamed broccoli and some steamed carrots. And now chefs can do a lot better than that. So whether you actually have food allergies or food preferences, it's a fun time to eat like that. The third thing I'm excited about today and every day of my life is barbecue. I love barbecue so much. I just think it's incredible that for, you know, centuries, we have taken fire and wood and cooked meat over it and eaten that. That's how primitive people ate. And now we've turned it into like a sport. And we have a lot of longtime barbecue restaurants in this town that are still really great, and we have a lot of what I'll call craft barbecue restaurants that have opened in the last 10 years or so. And Texas barbecue is so popular outside of this state. Like, people outside of Texas talk about our barbecue scene, as they should. Texas Monthly has its own barbecue editor. His name is Daniel Vaughn. It is his full-time job to eat barbecue in this state, which is wacko, right? He's a cool guy. He's very smart. He's a food friend of mine, and if you ever read one of his stories in Texas Monthly, just know he's the smartest barbecue mind in the entire state. But that's a job, which is like, whoa. But every 4 years, Texas Monthly comes out with their list of the best barbecue joints in Texas. It is an exciting moment, certainly for Daniel Vaughn, the person who writes it, but it's exciting for me too, because we talk about it with our readers. And Fort Worth specifically is the best barbecue city in the entire state right now, in my opinion. And I have written stories about this. So if you're ever over in Fort Worth, what you need to do is eat at one of the 5 or 8 fantastic barbecue restaurants there if you love barbecue. And what you need to eat is brisket, and you should order it fatty if you don't like it, because fatty brisket cooked perfectly is wonderful. Now, if you're thinking like fat, like New York strip, you know, like that piece of fat that's gross to chew, that's not how fat is rendered on brisket. So brisket is smoked for 12 hours-ish. It's usually an hour per pound of the brisket, so call a 12-pound brisket a 12-hour smoke. And so if you ask for your brisket fatty, what it is just sort of that like buttery deliciousness. It is not like you chew the fat. I know that's like extended information, but it's important because I love it so much. And brisket is the lifeblood of a barbecue restaurant. There are other things you can get there, and a good barbecue restaurant needs to have wonderful turkey, which will be your best option, your healthiest option. But brisket is the lifeblood of barbecue. And I've loved barbecue my whole life. My husband and I smoke. We have a smoker and a big green egg, and we are backyard barbecuers as well. We're also huge college football fans, so those things go hand in hand. But I encourage you to eat at a new barbecue place if you see one, because we have a really thriving barbecue scene. And I'll point just one out: the Douglas in Snyder Plaza, which is right around here. The Douglas is a new restaurant that opened a couple of months ago. The pitmaster is a guy named Doug Pickering, who's born and raised in University Park, and I really like this restaurant. And what he is doing is he is doing traditional Texas, Central Texas style barbecue at lunchtime, and then he's doing a little bit of elevated dinner time. So like you can go and get smoked salmon at dinner time if you'd prefer, or like a big dinner salad with some smoked meat on top, but you can also get your fatty brisket and your mac and cheese if you want. But I recommend the Douglas in Snyder Plaza. It's good. The fourth thing I'm excited about when it comes to food in this region is a place, Fort Worth. I mentioned it briefly with barbecue, but I was one of those Dallas people, and maybe you are too, to where you think that Fort Worth is really far away, right? You're like, never go over to Fort Worth, it's so far away. Fort Worth is 45 minutes that way. If you don't go during rush hour, it's not hard to get there. And Fort Worth has such a cool food scene right now. So in addition to barbecue and Tex-Mex, which they've done well for years, they have many new barbecue and Tex-Mex places, and they have all kinds of other stuff over there. I was just in Fort Worth on was it Tuesday or Wednesday of this week? John Bonnell, another very well-known Fort Worth chef, he has Bonnell's and Waters, which are 2 higher-end restaurants in Fort Worth. John Bonnell just opened a burger and barbecue place right across the street from TCU. Great little burger place. You know, you spend $10, you get a good burger. There are breweries in Fort Worth. There's so much going on in Fort Worth. I ate at this really great Filipino restaurant the other day. So I recommend, if you haven't been to Fort Worth, there's so much to see. And if you need a specific place to go to the Fort Worth Stockyards. If you have not been in a couple of years, it is nothing like you remember it. I remember it as a child to be a little bit of a tourist trap. There's not that much to do. The shopping not interesting. The food definitely not interesting. They redid all of it, like physically redid that street. They installed a hotel called the Hotel Drover, which is a actually really, really expensive, nice hotel to stay in with a Lucchese Boots store in the bottom. And then Tim Love has several restaurants near it, as do other people, and it has turned into this whole other thing. So if you need a staycation idea, my family and I did this twice during the pandemic because I have little kids and one of them was born the week that the pandemic started. So we were locked in our house with 2 small people for a long time and a dog. And so we would like take these little like safe trips someplace. And we went to Fort Worth twice during the pandemic and just stayed in a hotel with our children and ate cool food in Fort Worth. And I like highly recommend it if you just want a little place to go, you know, for a night or a whole weekend. Okay, the 5th thing I'm excited about are Texas-made beverages. So the alcohol laws in Texas have long been strange. We are in the Bible Belt. You know, we all remember when you couldn't buy tequila in certain counties, and you still can't buy it on Sundays. And for a long time, there were rules against breweries here. And so while Portland and other cool cities like that had sort of this bustling craft brewery scene, cities in Texas really did not until I think it was 2013 when some legislation passed that opened the doors for small business owners to, in a easier way, open a brewery and sell their stuff. And so what has happened since then is we've had a huge boom when it comes to craft beer. We also have distilleries here in Dallas-Fort Worth. So we have people making, you know, whiskey and vodka and rum, which is really interesting and new. And so one cool thing about a lot of the breweries in town is that they're actually really kid-friendly. So a lot of them tend to have a huge backyard with picnic tables, and you bring your kids, and there's stuff, you know, there's yard games for them to play while you try a beer or two. Just this really wholesome, you know, it's not people drinking 17 beers, it's just people enjoying craft beer. One of the reasons why I think I care about this too is, despite not growing up in a food family, my dad was a home brewer. And so when I was a little kid, he would brew beer for fun. And when I got old enough, he would let me like help him. And then when I got old enough, he would let me try it. And so I just, like, it was something he would bottle, and we'd have a Christmas party at our house every year. My dad would like pass out a bottle to everybody on the way out, kind of thing. It was like something my dad did. And so now it's just cool to see that Texas has become a place of industry for craft breweries and for craft distilleries. And we also have some really interesting bars in town selling those things. So those are the 5 things that I think are happening right now in food. The dawn of the neighborhood restaurant again. That you can be an eater of any kind, gluten-free, vegan, and find great food at great restaurants. I'm excited about barbecue. I'm excited about Fort Worth, the town, and I'm excited about the drinks that we can get in our state instead of buying them from other states. Now, there are a couple things that I think we should all keep an eye on. So 3 things that, I don't know if worry me is the right thing, but you know, something to think about. I'm going to hit these real fast so that I can take questions in 2 minutes. The first thing, how will out-of-town restaurants change our dining scene and habits? So when the pandemic happened, a lot of restaurants closed, and in the 2 food meccas of the country, New York and LA, they didn't come back as quickly as the rest of us, as those of us in Texas did. So what happened is a bunch of restaurateurs in LA and New York want to come here. They've always wanted to come here because the cost of living was lower and we have the real estate. But during the pandemic, more than ever, we had restaurateurs from New York and LA wanting in Dallas. I think this is very exciting. It's good for industry. It's good for creativity. It also is a little different for those of us who are born and raised in Texas. We've got a lot of, you know, popular and interesting concepts we haven't seen before. So I'm curious to see how this will affect our dining scene. And those of us who are kind of born and raised here, like, do we care? Do we care if a chain restaurant comes from New York or LA? Do we care that Carbone, the very expensive Italian restaurant in the Design District that started in New York City, do we like that? You know, I think a lot of people do, but it should be interesting to see if it has staying power, and time will tell. The second thing, how does restaurant going stay affordable? I was having lunch with one of the city's most wealthy people. I won't name his name, but you all know him. And he said to me, he said, I don't know anybody with this level of wealth who isn't careful with their money. And so what he was saying was he can afford to go to Carbone every single night if he wants. For reference, my husband and I went to Carbone for his birthday, and we easily spent $500 on the two of us. We did not get everything we wanted. So, whoa, right? So how does restaurant going stay affordable? Because, you know, we're in a serious inflationary period. Everything at the grocery store costs more. All those ingredients also cost more for restaurants to purchase, which means they have to pass along that cost to you. So your $8 burger is now $12 or $14, and we have to pick up the slack there as consumers. So it doesn't matter what your income level is, we're all feeling the pinch and noticing the increased menu prices, and I'm just a little worried about what that means. You know, do we choose to eat out a little bit less but then eat at the places we want, or do we start to eat a little lower end instead of all the higher end? I don't know the answer to it, but it's something that I'm keeping an eye on, and it's sort of a fascinating topic. And the third thing that I'll hit real quick is how do we honor cultural traditions with new restaurants? Who's allowed to cook what kind of food? It's something we should really think about. My favorite restaurant in East Dallas is called Mat Hai Ba. It is a Vietnamese restaurant. It is owned and operated by a Serbian chef. Can a Serbian chef serve Vietnamese food and call it Vietnamese food? You know, in this town, I think we can, but I think a lot about who is cooking and how and why. How do we make sure that that's real Vietnamese food from somebody who's never lived there? And also, how do we honor the idea that his restaurant is really good? So we'll see a lot of new people moving into DFW, as we've seen with Toyota here, and with so many new industries coming and putting their hub in Dallas-Fort Worth for a lot of reasons. Gordon Ramsay, the TV chef, just put his North American headquarters here in Irving, which means that I do think we will have a Gordon Ramsay restaurant or two in the next couple of years. But I think a lot about who is cooking what kind of food, and you know, are we honoring the traditions of the place where it came from? And then when are we allowed to take creative license? And I think this is something that good chefs think about all the time. Okay, I'm gonna stop there. I'm not gonna talk about my oldest restaurants project because we've got 10 minutes and I wanna be sure that I answer your questions. I do wanna say, if you're interested in the history of restaurants, it's my accidental new passion. So much so that I feel like I could write a book on this someday. I spent 5 months researching Dallas-Fort Worth's oldest restaurants, and I have written many stories about all the restaurants that are 50 years and older. So it turns out we have 80 of them, 85 of them. Can you believe? When I said I was going to do this project, I was like, there's probably 12, you know, and then there wasn't. So if you're interested in that, I'd love to talk to you about it today or another time. Okay, let's take some questions right here. Yeah, great question. He says, how's Romano's project doing? He's talking about Trinity Groves in West Dallas, built at the bottom of what some have called the bridge to nowhere, which of course goes somewhere. It is in a period of flux, is what I'll say. Phil Romano built this restaurant park with the idea that you and me, who do not live in West Dallas, would drive over there and eat. I think it did great in its first couple of years, and some of Dallas's best chefs had restaurants there. One of the reasons they had restaurants there is because there was an incentive that Phil Romano and his investors would own 51% of each new restaurant, and the person who brought it in, the new chef, would own 49%. But what it offered was a leg up for these people who were new. Well, he realized that that model wasn't working, and during the pandemic, he stopped that model, and now it's a restaurant park like anywhere else, where you just say, hey, New York City restaurateur, would you like to put in a place? And they can if they want to. But half of the place is closed during the pandemic or before. They have a 29-year-old CEO who is also a chef, whose dad worked for Phil Romano his whole life for Brinker. And Phil Romano went to this guy's first birthday. And this now 29-year-old CEO is running Trinity Groves as a sort of mentee of Phil Romano. I like him, and I think he'll do some interesting things. I don't know if it'll ever get back to being the hottest spot in town like it was when it opened. Does that answer your question? Good.
I still miss the Grape on Lower Greenville.
Me too.
But Sister is there now. So what makes the Sister in the top, in your opinion?
Yeah, the question is, well, he misses the Grape. What makes Sister, its replacement, one of the top Dallas restaurants? I love Sister, if I can just say. This is an Italian restaurant with some Mediterranean influences. So in addition to making their own house-made pasta, they're also making homemade hummus and serving beets and, you know, you can get some really healthy dishes in addition to these heavier pasta dishes. I think that place is really inspired. Now, it's tricky because I live like really close to it. And so that's my neighborhood restaurant. Like if I were to tell anybody in Lakewood to go and spend their money in the neighborhood, it's at Sister first. The New York Times listed 2 restaurants that are the best restaurants in the country right now. There are 50 on the list total, 2 in Dallas-Fort Worth. Sister is one of them. So their reservations are like out of control right now. And then Smoke and Ash Barbecue in Arlington, which is a Central Texas style barbecue joint with Ethiopian influences. It's so cool. It is so cool. And if you like barbecue like I do, it's like, what can we do with barbecue besides like smoke meat over fire? And they're doing other stuff. And that just, as you can see, like makes me very excited. But if you haven't been to Sister, it's really wonderful. And it is, the name Sister is because it is the sibling restaurant or the sister restaurant to the Charles in the Design District, if you've been there. They're kind of the same DNA. This guy also, the team who also opened Sister in the Charles is opening a restaurant in the old Highland Park soda fountain on Knox. That's him. So when you see that open, that's all connected. Yes, ma'am.
It's interesting.
Oops, sorry.
You take these chains like Cantina Laredo. They have good food, but every quarter they have tequila dinners. Tequila drinks matched with a fixed menu, and those meals may be some of the best in Dallas. Do you have any comment?
I love that. I haven't been to one of Cantina Laredo's tequila dinners, but what I will say is that many of the restaurants around town, chain or not, are finding that these special events are really popular. Like, insert any other excellent restaurant, and they'll have a wine dinner, and they'll sell Craig Hall's wine, and they'll pair it with each pairing, and you and I, who, if you have the disposable income to go because they're not cheap, they make pretty good money on those nights, and we all go, that was so cool, because they made me special food, they paired it, they get to show off creativity, so it sounds like a chain is doing that same thing, but doing what they do, which is tequila and Mexican food. It's smart, I like it.
All right, so we got time for one more question.
Sorry, you guys.
What about the barbecue at the new HEB in Frisco?
Yes, I just
Have you had
went.
it?
Yes. I'm so glad you asked that. Yeah, so HEB opened in Frisco 2 days ago. And my mom lives in Frisco. It's all anybody can talk about. If you're from somewhere other than here or been to Austin or San Antonio, HEB is it's a great grocery store. Central Market is its sibling. So Central Market is an expensive HEB. So you can get a little flavor of HEB. Inside HEB, inside 21 HEBs of the 316 HEBs in Texas are a barbecue joint, and the Frisco grocery store got one of them. I am highly impressed with this barbecue. It is chain barbecue. You know, there's 21 of them, which is hard to have 21 and have them all be good. But Daniel Vaughn, my friend and barbecue editor at Texas Monthly, thinks it's the best chain barbecue in the state. I ate there last Wednesday, would have been 10 days ago, and I was floored. They make green chili cornbread, like based on the culinary director's grandma's recipe. They have creamed corn. I like it. There's a drive-through too, which is cool.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm sorry you only had a half an hour. We are going to place a book in McShannon Elementary School in your honor. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
All right. Let me see. Next week, I got to put my glasses on to read this. I'm sorry. Next week, we have got Rebecca Jowers from the Poima Foundation talking about human trafficking in Dallas area, going from food to human trafficking, much different program. Richard Stanford is going to be our chair of the day again. And Pat Martin, if you would come up and do the four-way test.
The four-way test was created in 1932 by Rotarian Herbert J. Taylor, who later served as RI president. The four-way test is a nonpartisan, non-sectarian, ethical guide for Rotarians to use for their personal and professional relationships. The test has been translated into more than 100 languages. Please join me in reciting the four-way test. Of the things we think, say, or do, first, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendship? Fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned?